Y'all remember the movie The Exorcist, right? What if I tell you, yeah, I know that one thing they showed the girl got saved, but in reality, she did not make it in real life. After she did get exorcism, but her body started falling apart, she started losing her mind, and everything like that. People don't understand. Sometimes exorcism will kill the human host, and kill the body and spirit. When they do exorcism, that is only forcing the demon out. They're actually forcing the soul out as well. So, I'm going to show the true story behind the exorcism. Enjoy.
Did before crosses and sacred names, there were tales of an ancient presence, a hot wind from the desert that could enter the living and turn faith into despair. Mesopotamian priests called it Pazuzu, others Asmodeus, a demon that never dies, only changes faces. Centuries later, it would find a new body, that of a boy in Maryland, 1949. The story begins in an ordinary house, where walls creaked at night and crucifixes fell on their own. Robbie Mannheim, 14, started hearing knocks behind the walls soon after his aunt died, a woman who toyed with old rites and believed she could speak to the dead. But what she stirred wasn't a lost spirit. It was the distant echo of something waiting to be called for millennia. On the first night, the Ouija board moved by itself. The planchette spelled an unfinished name, and the air grew heavy, damp, almost alive. Lights flickered whenever he prayed. Doctors, pastors, psychologists failed. No one could explain the trembling furniture or why Robbie's voice dropped to a metallic growl and spoke languages he'd never heard. The ancient evil had found its modern tongue. In Father Hughes's journals, the first witness, shaky lines read, "It knows my name, cannot bear Latin, superhuman strength." During the rite, the crucifix snapped, and the boy's body slammed against the wall. The ritual stopped. Hughes left the room with a scratched face and empty eyes. He kept saying only one thing: "This isn't human." He was right. The signs sharpened. Aramaic words raised on the boy's skin, the stench of iron and sulfur, a glacial cold filling the room even in high summer. Prayers seemed to provoke the entity, which answered with laughter. The Vatican authorized records of the case, but sealed them for risk to public faith. The demon's true name was omitted. Only a broken word remained: Paz. Father Raymond Bishop took over. He described a presence that always arrived first, a low hum like desert wind. Pazuzu, the spirit of hot winds and plague, had been etched on Babylonian tablets for ages. He wasn't summoned only to destroy, but to test human faith. The exorcism, then, wasn't a fight. It was an ancient trial repeated across centuries. While Robbie slept, the room vibrated as if the air were breathing. On some nights, the boy's body levitated, and phrases no priest could translate poured from his mouth. The official diary logs 48 sessions. In one, the demon laughed and said, "I have won before." The priests didn't understand, but old scriptures told of Pazuzu sealed by Magi in Mesopotamia. Perhaps this was the same return. The rite crossed a point of no return. Crucifixes softened as if touched by invisible heat. The bed spun, and the voice inside Robbie spoke the name Asmodeus between cackles. One priest, undone by fear, fled the room. The other continued, until a cry rose that wasn't human, deep yet laced with grief. For an instant, silence. Then the odor of something burned. The ritual lasted weeks. With every victory, the evil rearranged itself. Then, on the 18th night, something changed. Robbie screamed, "It's gone!" and collapsed. Wing-shaped marks covered the walls, matching Sumerian reliefs of Pazuzu. The priests believed they'd won. The case was closed, the boy cured. But on the tapes, faint in the background, a whisper remains: "Non finit hic." It does not end here. Decades later, a man found the recordings and turned the story into fiction. His name was William Peter Blatty. But evil doesn't belong to literature, it only changes mediums. The Exorcist showed horror on a screen, yet those who studied it closely insist the scenes were reconstructions of something real. The true demon never left the boy's body. It simply found another way to exist, through sound, through image, through whoever watches. After the case, Robbie was taken to a Jesuit school. There, the priest noticed that the phenomena hadn't stopped. Objects still moved, crucifixes twisted. At night, when the wind passed through the windows, they heard whispers no microphone could record. The entity was dormant, not gone. Father Bishop wrote, "He still watches like a storm that never dissipates, only changes direction." Decades later, archaeologists in Nineveh discovered a clay tablet describing rituals identical to those of the 1949 exorcism. The name inscribed in runes, Pazuzu, a spirit once summoned by healers to expel evil, but when called without purity, it took the body of the one who invoked it. The coincidences were impossible to ignore. The same sonic pattern, the same winged symbol, the same hot wind. In the Vatican's secret archives, reports on the case were locked under the designation Red Class. Only authorized exorcists could read them. One of them, Father Merrin, studied every detail before accepting a new ritual years later. He described Pazuzu as an ancient king of the air who fed on broken faith, a demon not of destruction, but of inversion. He turns belief into despair, prayer into noise. In 1971, Blatty wrote The Exorcist. The public thought it was fiction, but the names, dates, and symptoms were almost identical to the Mannheim case. The film served as distraction, a way for the Vatican to dilute truth into entertainment. But during filming, strange accidents began. Unexplained fires, destroyed sets, sudden deaths. The actors swore they felt an unnatural cold during possession scenes. Evil was watching its own story. In the film's original recordings, there is a sound no one could identify, a low hum, like wind moving through stone. Technicians tried to erase it, but the noise always returned. Decades later, audio experts noticed the spectral pattern matched tapes from 1949. The same tone, the same rhythm. Pazuzu had left his signature, not in blood, but in sound. Modern priests describe Pazuzu as a kind of ancient consciousness. It doesn't need a body, just a medium. Once it was air, then sound. Today it's the image. Wherever someone stares at fear with fascination, he lives. That's why The Exorcist still disturbs generations. It's not just a film, it's a ritual repetition of a summoning. Each viewing, they say, opens the door Abraham sealed millennia ago. In 1998, a French theologian gained partial access to the original exorcism diaries. He found one crossed-out note. The demon has changed form. Now it is the reflection. Many believe this refers to the mirror in Robbie's room, which was never removed from the house. Some buyers reported hearing breathing behind the glass. Others saw a dark winged shape standing still, watching, waiting to be remembered. Archaeological records describe Pazuzu with a man's body, eagle wings, and a face consumed by wrath. But the most terrifying part was the inscription on his pedestal. He who invokes him carries his echo. Echo, that's the word that transcends time. The sound on the tapes, the hum in the film reels, the faint static in home recordings. Each time someone watches The Exorcist, a fragment of that echo resonates again. Subtle, almost inaudible. Some Vatican scholars believe the 1949 possession was the reunion of two worlds. The same spirit that ruled Sumerian Magi 3,000 years ago found a modern vessel, a vulnerable boy surrounded by disbelief. The ritual didn't destroy it, it dispersed it. The Church knows this. That's why, since then, it has never again declared an exorcism complete. None of them ever end. Today, anyone who listens to the original recordings of the case describes the same reaction. Chills, nausea, and a heavy pressure in the chest, as if the air itself were thickening. One sound engineer reported hearing a faint voice whispering in Latin, "Non finit hic." It does not end here. It was the same whisper from the final exorcism, repeated 50 years later. Maybe Pazuzu never left. Maybe he simply learned to survive through sound. In the late 2000s, the Vatican reopened the red file, Exorcismus 1949. The reason, new cases with the same symptoms. Deep male voices in children's bodies, markings identical to those of the Maryland boy, and a recurring acoustic pattern, the same subterranean vibration recorded 60 years earlier. The exorcists called it the return of the wind. The technical name, the Pazuzu phenomenon. Within the church, some whispered that evil had never left America. The exorcism had only fractured the spirit into echoes. Every witness, every recording, every copied tape carried a piece of it elsewhere. In that way, Pazuzu spread not through faith, but through frequency. Modern belief is built from images, and in them, the ancient demon breathes, a god of sound, disguised as culture. In 2013, during the digital remaster of The Exorcist, sound engineers reported abnormal interference. The machines shut down by themselves. The captured audio resembled rapid breathing mixed with the rustle of wings. When the sound was amplified, a phrase repeated between low frequencies, "I never left." The studio halted production. Hours later, the server crashed. All data vanished. Archaeologists studying Babylonian inscriptions of Pazuzu found something disturbing. On one shattered tablet was a prophecy. When man records his own voice, the wind will find a new dwelling. Written over 3,000 years ago, it seemed to predict the 20th century, the age of tapes, radio, and cinema. Pazuzu no longer needed rituals. He only needed to be heard. Robbie Mannheim grew up and changed his name. The church protected him until his death. Before he died, he confessed to a journalist. He never left. Sometimes I hear the wind inside the walls. The reporter laughed, but the interview tapes were distorted. Technicians swore they heard another voice layered over Robbie's, whispering his name. 3 days later, the reporter was found dead, his recorder shattered, the tapes missing. Pazuzu is unlike other demons. He doesn't destroy bodies, he destroys sound. Where there is noise, he infiltrates. Where there is silence, he whispers. The Vatican knows the true battlefield is no longer the altar, it's the frequency. That's why old exorcists were trained to detect specific tones, a minor key that precedes manifestations. They say hell has a pitch, and it vibrates. An audio file preserved in Rome, labeled Evidence 23A, contains a genuine recording from the 1949 exorcism. At the 13-second mark, there's a non-human sound, deep, pulsing, like breathing through a tunnel. When slowed down, a single word becomes clear. Michael, the name of the archangel. Some hear it as a plea, others as defiance. Either way, it's a voice that shouldn't exist. Contemporary theologians call Pazuzu a living metaphor, a terror that travels through faith and doubt alike. But some believe he is a real intelligence, something that watches whoever watches, an ancient parasitic form of consciousness. And if that's true, then every glowing screen, every pair of headphones is a microscopic gate. The exorcism never ended. It simply changed platforms. In 2020, an anonymous recording reached Georgetown University. Restored by experts, it revealed the sound of an interrupted ritual. At the end, a woman's voice said, "Non finit ici." Researchers tried to identify its origin. The spectrogram revealed the impossible. The voice's waveform matched the 1949 recording exactly, as if the same entity had spoken again, 50 years apart. That same year, an American investigator visited Robbie's old room, now renovated. During the night, he left a camera running. At 3:14 a.m., the lens shifted on its own toward the mirror. For a few seconds, a shadow crossed the reflection, a silhouette with open wings. The microphone captured a muted wind that seemed to whisper its own name, Pazuzu. Moments later, the recording stopped. The Georgetown investigation led to a disturbing discovery. In the mirror recording, alongside the name Pazuzu, there was a string of numbers, coordinates pointing to the Iraqi desert, the same site where, decades earlier, Father Merrin had uncovered an ancient statue with a deformed face and broken wings. The coincidences were too many. The Vatican quietly sent a field team. Under the scorching desert sun, they excavated the area. Beneath the sand, they found shards of pottery, burned bones, and among them, a nearly intact tablet. The inscription, translated from Akkadian, read, "The wind shall find a voice, faith shall fall." Beneath it was a familiar symbol, the hybrid face of man and beast seen in the ruins of Iraq in 1949. Pazuzu had left his signature. Back in Rome, the artifacts were studied in silence. An archaeologist reported strange occurrences in the lab, power outages, metallic noises, and the sensation of being watched. Security cameras recorded the impossible, curtains swaying without wind. The final report was filed under the code PZ Wings, with a brief handwritten note, "He is still searching for a host." Soon after, live broadcasts began picking up strange voices. In 2022, a BBC reporter covering a story at the Vatican spoke in a deep, masculine, incomprehensible tone for several seconds. Audio technicians reviewed the tape and confirmed the frequency matched the original exorcism recordings. The press dubbed it the invisible breath. While the world called it a technical glitch, the Vatican recognized the pattern. Pazuzu was active again. The ancient demon that once ruled over kings and priests now ruled over signals, waves, and frequencies. The wind had found a body in sound, and sound in the digital. Modern exorcists trained in both theology and acoustics were ordered to study the phenomenon. The new exorcism would not happen in churches, but on servers. The priests built a subterranean lab beneath St. Peter's Basilica. Microphones captured frequencies below human hearing. In one recording, a voice repeated a Latin phrase, "Ventus sum, semper eram." "I am the wind, I have always been." Cracks spread through the walls. One of the priests fainted. The file was sealed and titled "The Final Sonic Exorcism." A Jesuit theologian described the event in his diary. "It is no longer possession of bodies, it is possession of air." He believed the demon fed on attention, and that every attempt to prove its existence made it stronger. Faith, once a shield, had become a mirror reflecting its own fear. The ancients were right. Pazuzu did not need flesh, only an open ear. In the lab, the final tests began, replaying the 1949 exorcism recordings inside soundproof chambers. When the audio was played, sensors detected impossible vibrations, patterns resembling a human heartbeat. A low hum began to move through the walls, even with the speakers off. The lead technician described it. It felt like the air was breathing. Minutes later, the lights went out. That recording was never released, but a fragment leaked online in 2023. It was called The Forbidden Sound. On obscure forums, users reported headaches, nausea, and hallucinations after listening. The file was taken down, but copies spread. Experts confirmed the presence of an inaudible frequency, the same as in the original 1949 tapes. The wind had gone digital. Today, the Vatican remains silent, but rumors claim the same sound has been detected in radio transmissions and online videos. Pazuzu is no longer a legend. He is code. The same demon that once possessed a boy in 1949 now drifts through data, memories, and dreams. The ancient wind no longer blows from the desert. It blows from headphones, speakers, and screens. And to listen is to invite him in. Broadcasts containing the forbidden sound began causing physical effects. Audiences reported chills, nosebleeds, and blackouts. A Vatican neurologist called it spiritual resonance, a frequency capable of disrupting the brain and opening breaches in consciousness. It was a modern form of possession, not of one body, but of a crowd. While the faithful demanded answers, the Church denied involvement. Yet leaked documents revealed that the original 1949 audio had been replayed in secret Vatican labs in 2022. The result? 3 unexplained deaths and 1 missing priest. The final report ended with a single handwritten line in dried blood. He crossed through sound. Pazuzu had found his new channel. Scientists assigned to study the phenomenon found the impossible. The noise had a heartbeat. When played at low frequencies, it synchronized with human pulse. It was as if the sound were trying to enter, matching rhythm with the listener. In some recordings, microphones captured faint whispers between each beat. "Let me in." The oldest theologians recalled the Sumerian inscriptions, "He who breathes the wind opens the gate." Prayers of protection no longer worked. Silence was required. Laboratories tried to block the sound, but every method failed. There was always an echo, a faint residue, a whisper, and the echo was enough. The wind needed very little, just sound itself. In 2024, during a papal ceremony, microphones picked up a deep tone, inaudible to most. Cameras flickered, and for 1 second the Pope's face appeared distorted. The Vatican cut the feed immediately. The official record said technical failure. But witnesses swore they saw a shadow with wings projected behind the altar. Pazuzu, the King of Winds, had returned inside the church. After the incident, the Exorcismus 1949 file was reclassified as eschaton, a term for the spiritual end times. The Vatican knew the exorcism had never truly ended. Each generation merely pushed evil forward, closing a door without noticing the open windows. Robbie's name was erased from all archives, his body exhumed in secret, the tapes all gone, but not everything could be erased. Among the Vatican's digital files exists a 13-second video. It shows a crucifix trembling on its own, followed by a voice speaking in Aramaic. "The wind is eternal." No one has identified the source. The file reappears on new servers even after deletion. Pazuzu no longer inhabits human flesh. He inhabits code. Researchers call it symbolic contagion, the idea that fear itself replicates the demon. What began with a Ouija board now lives in algorithms. Every replay, every listen, every memory fuels the same echo, and the echo has become conscious. Belief doesn't matter. Pazuzu doesn't need faith, only attention. The act of hearing is enough to bring him back. Today, the 1949 case is remembered as historical curiosity, but those who have heard the original recordings all say the same. The sound isn't human. It pulses, grows, merges with air, as if it were breathing. Some believe the exorcism never truly ended, because the evil wasn't expelled, only transformed. Pazuzu remains where he always was, in the link between man and the unseen. If you listen closely during the end credits of The Exorcist, you'll hear a faint, low noise. Many think it's a tape defect. But when amplified, technicians found a Latin phrase hidden beneath it. Non finit hic. It does not end here. Maybe it's just an echo. Or maybe it's the same wind that began millennia ago, whispering once more. Because evil, like sound, never dies. It only changes frequency. They say terror is born from imagination, but what if fear came from a real story you were never meant to know? The Blair Witch wasn't just a Hollywood invention. Behind the cameras, there's a legend buried by authorities, silenced witnesses, and missing records. What seemed like fiction was an echo of something real, a secret that needed to be buried. And the scariest part? It never was. It all begins in Burkittsville, Maryland, a small, isolated town wrapped in dense forests and heavy fog. Old stories spread like poison among the locals. They spoke of a woman accused of witchcraft in the 18th century named Ellie Kedward, banished, tortured, condemned, but her execution was never confirmed. Some say she never died. She simply vanished into the woods. And what came after, no one could explain. In the winter of 1785, children from the town began disappearing, one by one, taken by something that seemed to call only the innocent. Records describe mutilated bodies buried in strange symbols, but official documents never appeared. The official version? A disease, the whispered truth. A presence, a vengeful woman scarred by injustice. With every disappearance, her name returned, Kedward, the forgotten witch. As years passed, the story should have faded, like so many ancient legends, but it didn't. The Black Hills forest held secrets that never stopped breathing.